everybody, this has been an awesome space so far. I appreciate everybody for coming out. Stabull, I mean, guys, we've been waiting for this the whole time. It's time to dive into it with the AMA, me and K2 versus you, except we're giving something for everybody's about to win. It's not really a versus, but Stabull, why don't you jump into it? Tell us a little bit about who you guys are and what you're doing.
Yeah, hi. Thanks, everyone. My name is Fran. I'm the core contributor to Stabull. And you guys touched up on a lot of macro points that I want to chime in on, but this is fun space so far. I'll start.
Bring it on. This we can talk about whatever you want for the rest of this time. You're the guest of honor.
Right on. Well, look, I guess one macro point that I want to sort of make is that we're kind of seeing a global restructuring for a number of years now, right? While the West is kind of pandering to whatever the latest thing is, whether it's the weaponized immigration in the West or the yen carry trade or this, that, and the other, quietly, well, not so quietly, the BRICS nations have been accumulating more and more members. And I think they're up to so many nations have joined now that they represent something like 65% of the global population and 75% of all the resources around the world. And, you know, they've built an entirely alternative system to the SWIFT, the London Bullion Exchange, the IMF, the World Bank, all of that critical infrastructure to trade and settle outside of the petrodollar is largely already operational. And so the defense and trade agreements and non-USD settlement, you know, there's a new announcement on that front. So I kind of view the entire macro as these scales where everyone's distracted with the kind of liberal world order and US-based hegemony and petrodollar and et cetera, and the machinations that are going on. The scales are starting to tip over a number of years towards global trade going towards something that will end up looking like sound money. These nations are all, you know, buying physical delivery of bullion by the thousands of tons collectively across their central banks, and even have China out there telling at one point however many billion citizens go out and buy silver. You know, quite publicly, because they know what's coming. There's a reset. It's just not the reset that the West expects. It's probably going to climax at the end of the year or sometime next year. So I keep that in mind. But the questions then become what happens to fiat currencies, or at least what happens if there's like a 10% drop overnight in the Dixie, which I would classify as a major system shock. What happens to nations that use the US dollar instead of their own currency, like where I live in Bitcoin country, El Salvador? These are all very, very big subjects, and I'm glad that more smart people are kind of talking about them. My only argument or chiming in on that macro is just simply that everything is broken, corrupt, etc., has been since 1913 when the third and final Western Central Bank Charter of the United States was granted. And I think all these institutions are effectively being unwound and coming to an end. They have to. This cannot continue. You know, so for the immediate future, I think the Fed is going to do desperate moves, urgent rate cuts, a whole bunch of different actions, and we'll probably see liquidity into the market in some form of dead cat bounce over the next few weeks. But I fully expect a much larger correction, crash, whatever you want to call it, before Biden's term is up. I don't think that the attempts to lift the markets prior to the election so that they could say everything is great, but for us, I don't think that'll work whatsoever. Meanwhile, you know, we touched upon DeFi. It's very interesting to see legacy exchanges kind of freeze or slow down. DeFi doesn't slow down, right? As the gentleman from QuickSwap mentioned, you know, didn't skip a beat. And I was just checking out Aave earlier today. I think they have 16 concurrent markets, hundreds of millions in trades. There was a lot of liquidations, and it just worked perfectly, right? So I believe that DeFi infrastructure is now mature to the point that it's offering even TradeFi in the legacy system an example of how to build resilience and reduce systemic risk. You guys also touched upon the banks. I think we're going to see not just, you know, tier one banks, systemically critical institutions start to fall. I think this has been the plan all along, to consolidate most of the cash out of the regional banks and into the 6 systemically important banks, so that when a true problem occurs, it's easier to roll out CBDC I used to sit on the Reserve Bank of New Zealand's board for CBDCs. I can tell you they've known for years exactly the flavor that they're going to go with and, how it's going to work. And they're just waiting for the right catastrophe to attempt to roll out for the Commonwealth first, and then the rest of the West will follow from there. It'll fail as well. But the act and the effort to try and roll it out, and then the boomerang of the public rejecting it, is almost a necessary kind of dynamic that I think the world needs to go through to realize that, there is a plan B. There's Bitcoin and the decentralized infrastructure. So with that out of the way, what is it that we do?
I'm really bullish on what you have to say. Based on everything that you've just said, I was like, damn, this is probably, I hope this is built specifically for all the shit you just touched on. So now I'm excited for you to talk about Stabull.
Yeah, it is. And look, I've been in this space since 2010. I did what most people did and just completely ignored things. And then I reread Satoshi's white paper in Q1 2013 and realized, we're building, we're separating money from state. And so I've been buying, investing, liquidating, licensing, selling companies for a long time in this space. I partook in the first ICO in the world, which is on the Bitcoin blockchain, on the OmniDex, the Omni chain. I also structured and raised Sergey's 33 million for Chainlink, and I helped out with Salt Lending and Bancor, and so I set up a boutique kind of investment bank to do the structuring. We've done over $600 million worth of capital raising and structuring and transactions, everything from straight equity to tokens to warrants to equity to token swaps back and forth. I've got a lot of experience with jurisdictions and some of these sort of Web3 financial instruments. 2 years ago, we realized that one of the biggest trends is going to be putting real-world assets on chain. So just like, Chainlink made smart contracts smarter so they could ingest real-world information and expands, infinitely the amount of stuff you could do with smart contracts. We're now seeing the beginning of, a multi-trillion-dollar wave of assets coming on chain. You've all heard the news of Blackrock and these billion-dollar real-world asset funds and all the rest. But what we realized is that the Uniswaps and the curves and all of these different decentralized swap facilities, they're not designed for the FX and commodities asset classes. And so we hired a bunch of quants and mathematicians, and we rewrote the concept of an AMM, and we built a fourth generation clearing and settlement, swap clearing and settlement, otherwise known as an AMM or DEX, specifically for stablecoins, because we expect a lot of AUM or treasury increase into non-USD stablecoins as this macro restructuring, really starts to kick off, and even people in the West start to diversify away from purely being US dollar denominated over the coming months and years. So Stabull is just a really, really simple concept. It's only ever going to offer to do two things. You either go there to swap one asset to another. For now, it's just we're only just getting started. We've only just finished the kind of building out and releasing the MVP and the alpha, if you will. In the future, we're talking to everyone. We arguably have some of the best visibility of who's doing what, where their circulating supply is, what their strategies are from a neobank perspective, from a big chain perspective, the L1s, what their strategies are, from an issuer's perspective. So 2 years ago, we held some workshops and we asked 10 different non-USD stablecoin issuers, what is it that we want, as an industry in terms of infrastructure, because nothing was servicing the needs quite well. In those workshops, they gave us the common sense stuff like, hey, why don't we take 5% of protocol fees and put them into an insurance fund? Why don't we have better capital efficiency in terms of swaps? So we took all that and we built out a simple DApp that effectively you could either swap one asset to another, or you could stake and earn an interest rate on stable assets or proxy fiat tokens, right? Far less spooky and volatile than staking meme coins or altcoins or whatever. So that's all the platform will ever do, is just allow the ability to swap one asset to another, or dust off your stable coins or tokenized gold and other, real world assets over time that will load up as pools to earn an interest on it. And I'm personally particularly bullish on tokenized gold, not just because it's going to hold up its USD value over time with the, global geopolitical chaos and everything else, but because currently you have to pay to store gold in a vault, whereas now you could tokenize that gold, stick it on Stabull, and actually get, some form of yield out of it. And the yield comes from swap fees. So it's ethically sourced yield. So the expansion moving forward is just simply integrating more chains, adding more pools. We'll never have NFTs or lotteries or any of those bells and whistles. It's a bit of a slow burn. We'll grow with the actual real world asset and stablecoin sectors and their hyperbolic growth. Happy to sort of duck and dive into any area you wanna dive into further. That's kind of the overview in a nutshell.
Appreciate it. Is that a question for Stabull?
Well, that's a question about Stabull. Like, I would say, like, what do you think would be more prolific in the future? In my opinion, from all the chains and more developments, is Ethereum chain. But like, what is your vision for all the layers that are popping up? What competition will come to?
Well, so firstly, we're a piece of infrastructure, and our job is not to pick winners, right? So we don't really care which assets have longevity. We were even pitched to load a pool for a wrapped CBDC, a Nigerian Inaria CBDC. And as long as people add initial liquidity to that, we'll load up a pool, because it's not our job to speculate as to which products, free market principles and all the rest. Secondly, the Chainlink stuff, we've been talking to them for months. It is also not our job to create a cross-chain solution to take, say, the Brazilian stablecoin from one chain to another. They either have their own or they're consolidating towards products like from Chainlink and others. So we will simply integrate those interoperabilities and make it convenient so that, if you're staking on a Polygon pool, there's just a handy link of how to quickly, easily, take your, say, Turkish lira on Polygon and move it to Ethereum. We're agnostic in terms of as a piece of infrastructure, as a bedrock. And our vision is to just simply have, neobanks and DeFi protocols tap into our liquidity and build products on top, whether it's structured income products or, say, for example, I like to think in terms of use cases. Say there's a guy in Lithuania and he uses some European neobank. He wires 10,000 euros through whatever the bank rails he uses there. He does the KYC with the neobank, all the rest. Once his $10,000 balance is loaded up, inside that neobank, they might offer the option to convert to gold or Swiss francs, and the client in Lithuania will never know that the neobank is actually routing those orders on chain through to us. And then they might have an extension of the feature and say, would you like to move your gold to a savings account offering, 2-3%, whatever the neobank wishes to offer that client. And then with a click of a button, they're effectively, back office treasury function at the neobank is staking and managing that stake, and then probably, opening a new revenue stream that way as well by taking their margin on top. So we want to be a top 10 DeFi protocol that's deeply liquid, and liquidity theory, the most capital efficient attracts liquidity the most, and then liquidity attracts more liquidity. So we're security first, very slowly building level by level, getting out the door the products that we feel is deeply missing from this ecosystem.
Oh man, absolutely love that. We've got time for a few more questions, and I'm going to ask the one that I know a lot of the listeners are here curious about. And look, I'm looking around your Twitter. I was checking out the website. I see the word airdrop keep coming up. I know you guys have a token, and I want some alpha and some information about that. Stabull, what's going on with this airdrop? That's my middle name.
I was very hesitant to use the word airdrop, but look, we already have our strategic partners. Our lead investor is a publicly listed company. You can imagine an exhaustive due diligence that required and all the rest. And so we just have like 20% of the pre-sale left on a first come, first in basis. We're hoping a TGE in mid-September or thereabouts, maybe the end of September. Market should improve in crypto well by then. And 2 days ago, we launched a liquidity mining program, which is a huge development sprint that had to go through quite the audit. Again, security first. And so that allows people, that's a way to bootstrap liquidity. It's a way to tell the world, like, hey, dust off your USD, go buy some Brazilian real or whatever you want that's currently available on the site, stake it there, and you won't be able to claim your APY because we can't have the governance token in circulation before, the first listing on a centralized exchange or TG, whatever you want to call it. So instead, by staking now, you get a better reward after TGE in the form of an airdrop. So for the clever ones out there hunting yield, obviously the liquidity mining program is like a 10+ year program. Portion of the fees, auto buys our own governance token off the market and puts it back into the 10-year liquidity mining program. But if you stake now, you effectively get more, a bit of a bonus, if you will, for helping us bootstrap the initial liquidity.
Always love a good deal. Always love a good deal. Honestly, Stable, can't thank you enough. Everything that you guys are building. I love the very simple approach. You're like, hey, we're gonna do two things. We're gonna do them really, really well. I think that the market and our industry needs a lot of more of that. There's people that just try to be everything and then some. And it's
100%. I feel like sometimes I talk to founders and they like show up in a metaphorical trench coat and it's like, hey, we do this and this and this. And this.
So true. I know Josh and Rock are on the venture capital side, and I'm sure that's exactly what it's like talking to aspiring portcos of just like, listen, like we're gonna do it all, man. We're gonna do it all and then some. We're gonna do DeFi, GameFi, CultFi, you name it. Anything with a fi, we're doing it. And like we're the most safe bet ever. But one thing I do want to, I always like to wind things down, and this is a tip of the cap to our guy here, Pulse. But we've got people who come here because they're familiar with what you guys are building and they want to hear you elaborate more. They come here because we've got some absolutely amazing speakers, and they see their names pop up on the crypto Twitter feed, and they're like, you know what, I want to know what Rock, Josh, Fred, all these guys have to say. And then you've got people who follow Mario and the Roundtable because they respect the hustle, and they come here just to hear amazing projects. And so what are one, maybe two action items that everyone here can leave the space to do and support you guys?
Sorry, that was a question for me, or?
Yeah. Like when everyone leaves here today, what can we do to support Stabull? Like an action item, one, maybe two action items to be like, hey, go do this and we will go do that.
Yeah, sure. Well, first, I guess, get excited that there's, some infrastructure coming to what is arguably by notional dollar value, the largest growth sector in all of DeFi, stablecoins and real-world assets. So, check it out. If you've got the patience, read the white paper. We spent a lot of time and effort putting that together. And then, of course, follow us on Twitter and join our Telegram, Discord, whichever you prefer. And most importantly, give the DApp a try. Check it out, add some liquidity, perform a swap. Legal reasons we can't add liquidity ourselves, so we're just simply putting the incentives in place and publishing clearly how those incentives work. You like to call them an airdrop, for people to help us out. But we've got a lot of campaigns planned with Magic Square and these sort of user acquisition to sort of bootstrap more TVL and everything else in the coming weeks. And then hopefully, as I said, we'll do the public sale and launch on large centralized exchanges in the very not distant future.
Oh, man, that sounds great. I shot you a follow. I'm going to make sure to keep an eye on everything that's going on. Sounds like it's something that is different from what a lot of other companies out here are doing, which is why you should pay attention even more. I want to thank all of the listeners for coming out, all of the speakers for coming up. Also, remind everybody, any projects listening, Mario, IBC, the Roundtable, even though the markets are down, these guys are still looking to get involved, help out where they can. Investment, media services. There is a list that you can get help with from Mario on the Roundtable. Once again, thanks to all the listeners for coming out, all the speakers for coming up, Stabull for just doing what you're doing and coming up here with us. We'll see you at the next Mario and Nawfal on the Roundtable Spaces. I hope everyone has a great day.
Thanks so much, everyone.